Just listen to these. Scarface, I Shot Andy Warhol, Absolute Power, The Thomas Crown Affair, Flawless, Gone Baby Gone, and Darren Aronofsky's Pi, Requiem for a Dream, The Fountain, and The Wrestler. These are just a few of the feature film credits of our next guest, Mark Margolis, who has delivered a slew of outstanding performances in some of our generation's most memorable films. He's crafted a profound legacy on the small screen as well, where he's tackled recurring characters on hit shows like The Equalizer and Oz. We are tremendously pleased to welcome Mark Margolis to Movie Geeks United. Mr. Margolis, hello.
Hello. Now, do I thank everybody that helped me get to this point?
You can do whatever you'd like, sir. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you.
I don't know. You're very flattering. I've also done a lot of messy work here and there.
Oh, no.
No, not at all. Not at all.
You have been involved in some fantastic projects.
Yeah, I have. I've been lucky. I've been in some very good films.
And I want to talk about some of these films, including the two latest big screen releases that you got going on. But give me a sense of when the acting bug first bit you. When did that notion first enter your mind?
It's a weird thing. When I was a kid in Philly, I grew up in Philly. Mm-hmm. I was sitting with somebody, and we had been talking for a long time. I had sort of thought about acting at one point, and then he was talking about let's become radio announcers. We used to listen to a lot of radio. This was back in the dark ages. And then we went from that to let's become actors. And I thought, yeah, that's what I'd like to do. And he didn't go any further with it, and I said something to my father and ended up, he said, well, why don't you go look into it? And I went downtown in Philly to the Bessie V. Hicks School of Dramatic Arts. I was about 14.
Wow.
Apparently, I think I found out she's some well-known actress from either silent film days or something like that. Huh. You're the film buffs. Do you know of Bessie V. Hicks?
I will by the next show. I'll do my research.
I'll definitely look
I don't know.
into it.
I mean, it could be theater. It could be theater.
Right.
I don't know.
Was there something? What did acting hold for you? What did it do for you?
I'll try to be. I don't. The best I could say is there were so many things. I was kind of shy about many things and a bit held back. And what it has for me, it still has for me. It allows me to do things that I, on my own, would never do because I have, license from the author to do this or that. I mean, I'm on some level. I'm free of being responsible for doing that, and I can do it. And then if I really get into it, I can do it fully, and it's very it's a great release because it's something I could never have done, and not always, but that was one of the great things of it.
Yeah, and you did.
And it seemed a good way to meet girls.
Well, that's always important.
That is the most important thing right there, and that's a constant thing I've heard my whole life about it.
Especially if you're a shy person. So I don't know. I mean, that's just riffing, but.
Yeah, I mean, I'm considering the acting career myself for that very reason.
Well, it seems that everybody. I get stopped every day on the street by somebody asking me how do I get in that acting business.
Right.
And then I say, what do you do? And they say, I work for the city comptroller. And I say, well, how do I get in that comptroller business? It makes me great. Well, because I don't think people walk up to violinists with the orchestra and say, how do I get in that violin business? But everybody thinks they can be an actor. Right. Also, a lot of people think because they can construct a sentence that they're writers.
That is true.
Well, that sadly is something that's very true. Because, especially with the internet, that's very true.
Yeah. You studied with Stella Adler, and
she was my great teacher. I mean, when I came to Philly, I went to a year of college in Philadelphia, and then was involved with the theater department, even though I was thinking about going into something else. I had done some plays in Philly. And after I didn't care for the theater department that much, though. The school I went to now has a wonderful, apparently, theater department, but that was a long time ago. And I came to New York to see what the what the great teachers were like, and I actually had never heard of her. My family, apparently, later I found out all knew about her, and I had an interview with her with a buddy of mine. We drove in from Philly for the day, and it was the main thing that hit me was if God is a woman, this is him.
Yeah.
And Stella taught more than what it was to be more than acting. She taught what it was to be an artist in the world.
Right.
She was quite incredible, and I was scared to death of her for quite a long time.
We've heard that time and time again from some of the guests we've had on the show that studied under Stella.
Well, initially, I was a 19-year-old kid from Philly, which I really had never. New York itself was pretty overwhelming. It's a whole other place. I got used to her later. In fact, I traded classes by assisting her getting home and helping her when she got to her apartment. I checked coats at her parties a couple of times.
Yeah. So you studied with Stella, and what became the first break for you that you considered your first break?
I was with Stella for about 3 years, though the course was about 2, but I was afraid to break the umbilical cord, so I went a little further. Very quick, when I was in Stella's, I wrote that gets too involved.
I love hearing stories about craft and about training. So whatever you want to say, please.
Here.
What?
You're in good company here. If you want to,
whatever you'd like to say and share with us.
Well, you had Alan Rickman on before me, right?
Just yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I was thinking that's a hard act to follow unless you're Ray Fiennes. If you're Ray Fiennes, it's cool, but for me, he's quite an incredible actor. I saw him on the street once about a year ago in Soho, and just the guy, I realized who it was as he went by me, and he was an incredibly impressive-looking creature, person.
Yeah, I bet.
But he's a wonderful actor.
Yeah.
He's a wonderful actor. Anyhow, to go back to the thing, a few months out of Stella's, I got into a Broadway play called Infidel Caesar, which was Julius Caesar, Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, set in Cuba. They made these. Caesar was Castro. Che Guevara was Mark Antony. There was an idealist in the Cuban Revolution who a lot of people don't know about, or they say he was named Cienfuego, who blew up in a plane on a trip to Miami right after the revolution succeeded, and he was Brutus. And they had these movie stars in the play. Brutus was John Ireland. Do you remember John Ireland?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Which was a real wow for me because I had a good part. I was Casca in it. The conspirators met on the banana docks of Havana. All the funeral orations were given from jeeps. We were all in military fatigues. The soothsayer was a Haitian voodoo doctor. It folded after a week or two of previews. People thought it was kind of off the walls, though I think not. Ramon Navarro, the first Ben-Hur from silent film days, was one of the senators. They brought him into the play just so that they would attract all the middle-aged ladies or older ladies who had been fans of his.
Right.
This was back in about 1961. So that was the first thing, and then nothing happened after that, after it folded, and I got I wasn't getting any work, and the 60s came along, and I kind of drifted away from it for a while and got involved with art galleries that friends of mine were building in what became Soho later, and then started my own theater company because I couldn't do very much. As a result of my involvement with the art galleries, I created these giant plastic structures that filled whole, what would be the size of a gym in a university. And I created plays to fit in them, very weird things with tape recorders talking. I had a company, and we toured colleges all around the country through the later 60s, mid-60s on into the early 70s. And I did the whole thing, created all this stuff, then got weary of it and just remembered I had just wanted to be an actor. And somewhere about 1972 or 3, I went to Lee Strasberg because this was the guy Stella hated most. I wanted to see what he was about.
Yeah.
And I was at Strasberg's for about 2 years. And actually after that I started working.
Wow.
Sometimes I wonder, though, I mean, I have friends who became very successful out of Stella's. A roommate of mine, one of the great actors of America, Anthony Zerbe. I spent a year rooming with him. He got very successful very quickly out of Stella's. I think he was more focused. I kind of got lost in the 60s revolution. Right. I even did light shows with a group called Pablo's Magic Theater. They used to do light shows at the Fillmore East and all kinds of other places. And
now, I hope I have a couple of questions just on a craft level. I hope that it's not this first one isn't too vague. You've obviously been acting for a long time. You've been in the business a long time. Have you noticed, just from observation, how has the craft of acting and the level of performance evolved over the years? Have you noticed it evolve in a way?
That's a hard one to answer. I mean, I came into the world of where Marlon Brando had turned everything around.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that was, I came to Stella in 58, 59. And the great things to the young ones of us were either Brando or Kazan.
Right.
You wanted to be in the actor's studio, not because of Strasberg. You wanted to be in the actor's studio because Kazan was at the actor's studio. So what has I don't know what's evolved. I mean, at best, there are some actors out there that do marvelous, understated, simple work. I often envy them. There are a lot of people who are smart enough to know what to do, but there's not a lot happening. There are people that have certain, you know, because Brando made everybody believe that being very naturalistic, etc., whatever you would call it, that's a wrong word. A lot of people in my youth got hung up on, like, that Brando was all about torn T-shirts, which he wasn't. He had done some very classy things in the theater when he was around Stella, and later even in movies. So I see a lot of actors who do a certain kind of shtick that passes for being very natural. Natural's what I meant, not naturalism. You know, they'll talk, you know, they'll take a toothpick and I don't think this is what you're talking about, though, in terms of the evolution. I see what I'm really taken with is there are some actors that seem very, very smart nowadays, even smarter than what I observed when I was younger. They seem to be.
What does strike me, I think there's two parts of this question, in that an actor's possibilities are limited by the imagination of the writer to a large extent, and I think that to a large extent the writing has really kind of decreased in quality over the years for films.
Yeah, but I interrupt a lot. I never felt like I was limited by the imagination of the writer, that I have my own imagination to go much further with it. I actually always used to, it's a wrong thing to say, but, you know, there's this thing, especially in the theater, they say the actor serves the playwright. I always thought secretly inside bullshit I served myself. But I don't mean it that way. Stella used to say, and very truly so, that brilliant playwrights, like she'd talk about Chekhov, were very, on some level, they were easier to do than the lousy playwrights because they gave you everything. Now, whether you're capable of doing the everything they give you is another story, which is what makes Chekhov not so easy for a lot of people to do. But they do give you everything. So I don't know. I mean, I've been in things that were I didn't think much of them, but I found some way to do something with them for myself that made it better than what was there or what was given to me by the author.
Yes, sir.
Not that often. It's more often been something that I thought was not too terrific, but I needed to do it because I had bills to pay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah.
So.
Let's get into your new films in just a second because I'm anxious to talk to you about them. But very quickly, I know you're probably asked about this film a lot, and you're probably sick of it. But I'm going to be the millionth person to ask you about it. Scarface, the experience of shooting that, because Mr. Pacino is kind of an idol of ours on this show.
Uh-huh.
Can you tell me anything about the experience of acting across from him and what you kind of took from that experience?
I think I came to it determined not, just to be with this other actor. I found one of the wonderful things about him was he was another actor.
Mm-hmm.
I think we went into his trailer once to work on a scene because he wasn't sure what he wanted to do with it. I don't know what at the time I thought it was a wonderful thing. I loved getting into it. No one knew it was going to be the incredible success it's been, though. That at the time it opened, it kind of semi-bombed.
Yeah.
The critics were down on it. I remember going to the opening night. They had a big opening night screening up on Broadway, and I remember as the movie went, 10, 20, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, there were like dozens of people walking out on it.
Yeah.
I kind of cringed down behind my seat, but
that happened.
I thought he was I thought he was a wonderful actor to work with.
Right.
I kind of enjoyed F. Murray Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
Equivalently, I was around him and Paul Shinar, who unfortunately passed away,
mm-hmm.
who was lovely. Al turned to Murray one day and said, "What's cocaine really like?" I swear he said that. I don't know. I think Al, when he was younger, may have been a guy who drank.
Right.
I don't know what he knows about it. I'm sure he knows more about it than I do, at least in terms of researching his part. I was not a cocaine snorter in the movie.
Well, he obviously thought that F. Murray Abraham knew something about it.
Well, yeah, but Murray's very witty. Murray said this line, maybe you've heard it, but it was the first time I ever heard. Murray said, "Coke makes you feel like a new man. The only problem is 20 minutes later, the new man wants to feel like a new man."
Yeah.
Which I thought was a great line.
It really is.
Yeah, I'll tell you one interesting thing about Pacino.
Please.
That'll give you some idea of where he's coming from, though I recently read that he's not so into this anymore, which made me feel better, but I'll get to the point. I was sitting in the car with him. You know the major car scene where we see the diplomat get in the car and we follow it. I'm gonna blow the bomb, and he shoots me in the head. So we were waiting in the car while they set up the diplomat and his wife getting into the car, and this went on forever. We seemed to be in the car for like about an hour and a half, just sitting. It was near Tudor City, which is one of the only things we did in New York. Everything else was done at Universal in L.A.
Yeah.
And only a drop in Florida. They got right out of Miami because the Cuban community was upset about the image. Anyhow, the two other guys were sitting in the back. Angel Salazar, the tiny guy who's still fighting at the end. You remember him?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And the guy who played Ernie the bodyguard, who he took on when he shot Robert Loggia. Anyhow, Al started talking. In fact, he was doing most of the talking in the hour and a half we were sitting there. And I remember him saying, if we put all our faces together, we might come up with one good-looking guy out of the four of us if we use different features. And he went on and on and on and on and on. And a lot of what he was saying was was fucking lame, and I'm thinking, gee, this is like being back in the locker at Lincoln High School in Philadelphia. This is what I wanted to escape. It's like talking to jocks all day or something. And it went on and on. Then all of a sudden it dawned on me, this is not Al Pacino talking. This is Tony Montana talking.
Yeah.
And that was what was happening for him. Now, recently I heard him in an interview where he said he feels much more secure nowadays, and he doesn't have to be 24/7 into the character he's playing. He can leave it and come right back to it when they call the actors together, which made me feel a lot better, because as I've gotten older, I used to do things where I once played Dracula in something, and I used to hang around in a tree up on a campus of a regional theater, a college theater, looking at people walking across the campus and thinking who I was going to bite in the neck. If they had caught me up the tree, I would have been arrested. This was in the evening, but I used to get into these things. Yeah. And nowadays I don't so much, so when he said that, I felt a little bit vindicated. But I do remember this thing in the car, and when it hit me, I was very taken with the fact that he was just going to stay with Tony Montana until De Palma came over for us to, or gave the word for us to start up.
Yeah, we've spoken to De Palma and Stephen Bauer both about Scarface, so we're obviously very crazy about that film, as many people are. But let's get to your new films, and I'm fascinated by a kind of recurring collaboration that you have, and that is with Darren Aronofsky.
Yeah,
he's had me in all 4 of his films. I think it's because he figures any guy that can sit around contemplating Pi to the nth.
But that was such a great film, and we loved you in that film.
I loved me in that film, but I've not done anything that large. I had a decent-sized part in The Fountain, and a small part in Requiem. This one is an incredibly gorgeous film. I have 2 scenes, but I almost don't exist in the film. It's the way Darren works, where things that are unimportant he doesn't stay with. And I merely have one minor thing. I'm the guy who runs the trailer park that Mickey lives in.
Okay.
And I have one scene where he's yelling at me about locking him out, and I say, I can't help you, and I go into my trailer. And I have another scene that's from 500 feet back where I'm unlocking the trailer and letting him in while counting my money. But you almost don't know. And yet Darren gave me the 4th end credit, which is very gracious, but it's almost embarrassing. Some guy that came to the New York Film Festival to see the screening of The Wrestler said to me, I really thought you were wonderful in it. And I said, well, if you liked me in that, you must have loved me in No Country for Old Men, which I'm also not in. I mean, Darren graced me with that. There isn't much, but it's a gorgeous movie. It's like Mickey's incredible. It's on some level. I was thinking recently, there's something about this movie. When you see, have you seen it?
No, I'm looking forward, counting down the days.
You'll probably think I'm crazy when you see it, but lately I began to think that it's not quite, but in some parallel universe, it's an American La Strada with Mickey Rourke as Zampano. Wasn't that what Anthony Quinn was called?
I think
Zampano?
So. Yes, I think so.
Well, there's something about Anthony played the Muscle Man, and they traveled. I mean, Mickey's got a van he practically lives in that he moves around, and it has something of La Strada in it.
Yeah.
I mean, I always sum it up. Huh?
It's important you bring that up because, Aronofsky has a visual flair to him unlike any other filmmaker of his generation. He has something unique in all his films, and he touches on things in directors. And in this case, you bring up Fellini, and I believe that because he has a lot of influence. If you watch The Fountain, there's like a lot of Werner Herzog in that, and a lot of other great things. I think that's a beautiful film.
He had. I was involved with The Fountain from way back when he was first going to do it in Mexico, then Australia, and then we ended up 20 below zero up in Montreal doing rainforest scenes. But originally, it was a much more involved script. There was I mean, it's got a great complexity to begin with, but I think some things would have worked for some people better who had problems with it if he had been able to do though he did gorgeous things considering what he got cut back to.
Yeah, I mean, when Brad Pitt dropped out,
well, they took a lot of his money away.
Yeah, and I hated that. I hated him for doing that but I still think it's a beautiful, very underrated
Well, they
film.
took a lot of his money away when he went with Mickey. I mean, I say took a lot. There wasn't a lot of money to be had when he went with Mickey, and he did something gorgeous here. I mean, this thing is basically the story of a man who cannot live without what he loves doing, even though he's been told by experts that it's going to kill him if he continues.
Right. And it's taken a lot of his life away from him at the same time.
Yeah, but it's got some beautiful, witty things. That Mickey is very beautiful and subtle in it, and the women are quite incredible in it.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, both the lover and the daughter.
Yeah, they fantastic actresses.
And there's a comic in it who's quite wonderful as the guy who runs the deli that there's some deli scenes that are marvelous. By the way, Darren's parents are always put into the films too. They're in background.
Oh, really?
Okay, cool.
Let me ask you about Defiance. Now, this is an Ed Zwick movie, and Ed Zwick is known for making very exciting kind of action pictures in spirit, but they always have a socially conscious theme.
Yeah.
And tell me about this project and what attracts
by the
you
way,
to
I had a one-line thing in Glory way back.
Yes,
that's right. Mm-hmm.
I was originally supposed to do 2 scenes. I went down to Georgia, and he said, well, the writer decided to do that last week because the writer was also an actor. I was going to leave, but he asked me to stay, so I did it. But it ain't much. This movie, I got a trip to Lithuania, which was incredible. So,
wow.
What
was that? Yeah.
We were in Vilnius, in the old town, in the city of Vilnius, in the old town section. So it was quite an incredible place to be. It's also got a long history that some of which I had family members that were involved in, but. This is another incredible story. It's a true story.
Yes.
It's a really fascinating story about 4 guys that were pretty tough guys before the Nazis got there and weren't about to put up with the bullshit when they got there.
Yeah.
I don't know. By the way, am I allowed to say words like that?
You can say whatever you'd like.
Whatever you want.
I don't want you to get fined $500,000.
No, we're not going to. No one fines us. Not yet, at least.
So I can also expose my left breast.
That's
you
right.
You can do that, sure thing.
That's right. No FCC here.
Not yet.
I want to congratulate you, too, because it was just announced today another film that you're involved in. Actually, Jerry.
Adam.
Adam is in competition at Sundance this year.
Oh, really? That was a beautiful story. I have a tiny part in that. My joke on the street. Some people stop me on the street and they say, I've seen you in movies, and I usually say, and there's some truth in this, yes, I have 1 minute in everything.
But small part, large part, you are one of the great character actors. And
I told my mother said to me I was a great character actor, and I said, no, Mom, I am not a character actor. I am a weird-looking romantic lead. I always think that on some level every actor is a character actor, but I know what you're saying.
Sure, yeah. But you elevate anything that you're in.
Well, Darren once said to me when he saw the movie Dinner Rush. Mm-hmm. You know that movie?
Yes, I do.
Which all takes place in a... Darren said, you didn't do any acting in that movie. You were just yourself, because Darren always sees me as miserable, and I was kind of nasty and miserable in that movie. A funny thing with Darren, he's very witty with me. By the way, when you talk about what an incredible director he is, and I don't know as much as you guys know about film and, what influences me. What I always like about Darren that gets to me, that I find different than any other director, is he's very spare in what he chooses to keep and show you. And my best example is, you said you're big on the film Pi?
Mm-hmm, yes.
Mm-hmm. There's a scene in Pi on a subway where Sean Gillette is sitting there, the main guy, across from a man who's reading a newspaper and humming, I think. The man with the newspaper, the back of the newspaper has the whole stock page, and Sean wants to see it. And he gets all worked up and goes over and grabs the newspaper from the guy without saying anything. Darren never shows you the guy's reaction, whether the guy was angry, scared, amused, whatever, because it's not important.
Yeah, the scene's not
how
about
the guy,
you
can in other words, use your imagination
right.
And he does that in a lot of places where he
less
sticks with what's incredibly important. Any other director would do a reverse and show you the guy's reaction to the newspaper. To Darren, that's of no importance. Since the guy didn't, hit him over the head with a piece of wood, then it would be. But it doesn't matter whether the guy was scared or angry or whatever.
Yeah.
When I was up in Montreal and we were doing this rainforest scene in this ancient factory building that was about a mile long, and it was freezing in there, and it took days and days and days to do this one little rainforest thing where I get my head cut off or whatever, and I fall in the mud, and they were pouring ice cold water on me, and at one point I muttered into the body mic I was wearing, it would really kill you to get a heated tanker truck. The next day when we continued, because I was freezing, the next day when they continued it, there was a heated tanker truck, a warm water coming out of the rain that was falling, and I went up to Darren and I said, that was very nice of you to do that. He said, I would never do anything. I'm not going to spend money like that on that. Somebody else decided to do it.
Oh, that's great. Mr. Margolis, we are crazy about you, and we welcome you back on the show anytime you want in the future.
Anytime.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. You have a good evening.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.